Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Hub. It's football crazy at the moment, everywhere you look, with more on this evening as well, which could mean big swings going into Gameweek 22. My name is Fergi, and here as usual with Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And what colour is your arrow so far in Gameweek 21?
Hi, evening Fergie, evening everyone. So far it's a green. I think I am inside the top million for the first time. So having climbed out of the abyss, it feels great to be have a six-figure rank on screen instead of a seven-figure one to start with. Still got Bruno to play tonight, so
Ooh, mate, could be a big one.
optimistic for more points. And but funnily enough, I do have the lowest score out of the three of us so far this week. So there's more good news to come when we go round everybody's scores. But no, very happy with things, especially I know FPL Gaz is in the chat. Big shout out to him, Newcastle fan, and 47 points last night from the Newcastle boys was very well received. So loved that. Love watching the Newcastle game. Still, I'm sure we'll discuss the Gabriel assist that wasn't that I'd love to see reversed. But yeah, it's a good game week so far, and looking forward to tonight.
These greens all getting a bit boring, mate, now, aren't they, to be honest, for you? It's just green, whatever, green. Oh, fly, mate, well played.
Long may it continue.
Indeed. 71 points for you, as you say, 939, Rich. Lovely to see that. Six figures for the first time the first time since game week, sort of six or seven anyway. So really well played. We've also got with us, as you can see, the fantastic Jian Batra with us. He's absolutely flying this season. Jian, how are you? And what colour is your arrow so far in game week 21?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening to everyone. The arrow was green, and it was a healthy one, thankfully. Phil Foden came through with that brace, and he was the real star of the game week. And then small contributions across the board from Hall, an assist from Jackson. Then obviously the Palmer captaincy sort of worked. I guess it worked against the huge Salah EO, but obviously the Isaac captain as well, so good on them. And then just contributions from Gordon as well. That goal was really helpful at the end.
Jian, what happened on Tuesday? Both Fergie and me were busy doing other things on Tuesday, but can you comment on what seemed to happen across the community? Because everyone was going Isaac, and then there was this kind of tidal wave of support for Palmer, and maybe that was driven by you, was it? I don't know.
I'm not sure. So I was actually pretty surprised. So I put a poll out early in the week just to kind of gauge where it was at, because I was on Palmer from the start, and I was adamant that I was going to go there. And me and my mate were talking. We were like, "Oh, we'll have a differential Palmer." And throughout like the last maybe 6 hours, Palmer started climbing huge in terms of the captaincy rank. I think maybe the models had him. I'm not too sure, but yeah, there was a huge change. I noticed it as well, and I saw your message as well, actually.
Yeah. I think the Isak 75% flag affected the models massively, didn't they? And it's like, but my kind of thinking on it was, if he's fit, he plays, and if he doesn't, then he doesn't. I just couldn't see a world where he would come on with 20 minutes left. So I think that was the final decider for me. And Eddie Howe, as we know, is notoriously coy, isn't he? Around the fitness of players and stuff. So. But yeah, well played, Jian. You're having a storm of Foden. What a pick, mate. I know you're quite well known for your, I wouldn't say rogue picks, but your differential picks. And what an absolute spanking performance for you for Foden, 15 points. And 35k overall, mate. Halved your rank this week. I think you're out. Yeah, you're out of players. But superb week, mate, and superb season. Very well played indeed.
Thank you very much.
I'm on 74 this week. Brought in Gordon and Hall. I think I commented last week, Rich, how good your team was looking, and I was incredibly nervous. And yeah, just Newcastle's form they're just on such an incredible run, aren't they? They're just playing so well. They're scoring loads of goals. Hall looks so he's one of those. Yes, whenever you watch Hall, you don't own him, you kind of cringe. He's got these old school sort of Alonso-esque vibes where he's just weaving down that left-hand side of the box, whipping in balls. He's so dangerous. So I was really pleased to get them both in. Had Palmer, obviously. Chris Wood, I mean, just keeps on. And home to Southampton this week. So I think we'll have an interesting chat later. The captaincy, again, is interesting this weekend as well. It's completely tied on the polls. But yeah, and I've still got João Pedro. So I did actually mess up because I thought the deadline was 6:30. And 6:05, I was actually listening to your deadline spaces, Jian, on Fantasy Football Hub. I was listening in my car, and you kind of talked me into benching João Pedro and playing Robinson. But I thought the deadline was 6:30, so I got to my destination and I plenty of time. Oh, I'll grab a quick drink. When I got there, I realised that the deadline is gone. So I got Robinson 7-pointer on my bench, but I have got João Pedro to play. So I'm hoping he either starts and gets some kind of return or doesn't. I don't want a 1-pointer. But yeah, overall, really good. 378k, but Bruno could do some damage to that. And there's a few Amads around as well in there. So be happy just for an overall green arrow, I think. Did ask ChatGPT to review my game week so far, and it came back with the following. Injury risk Isak, yet a captain supreme, still leads the charge in my fantasy dream. His minutes were managed, his points did ensue. A gamble that paid off, my trust proved true. Palmer struck gold with a goal so divine. His flair on the pitch made my midfield shine. Another Wood goal, how he stays in the mix. Keeps the return steady, a fantasy fix. New signings in Gordon and Hall showed their flair. Their performance is brilliant, beyond compare. A goal and a clean sheet. They answered the call, delivering big as I rose through it all. With João Pedro to play, there's hope yet to grow. A green arrow beckons, my team's all aglow. Gameweek 21, you've been kind to my side. A push up the ranks. In my team, I take pride. Very, very exciting times for these coming weeks. We're going to have our first real chat on chip strategy in a bit. But it feels like, gents, all three of us in a pretty decent position in terms of our team structure to go and attack those chips in a good way. Hello to everyone in the chat. We've got a packed one this evening. Thank you so much, Ross Johnson, FPL Gaza, first two in. Musica Pogo is in. Paul K says, don't forget to wave at the end, Rich. Zara Kennedy is in. Only second time listening live. Was hoping to discuss the best Everton-Liverpool balance for double game week. We've got whole slides dedicated to that, Zara, so don't worry about that. Dave Hannigan is in, Cedric Levy, Brandon Ong, FPL Freddy, Dave Kent, Todd Kirschke, all the way from Chicago, Gary Ticker from Sweden, sunny Sweden, Paul van Rensburg is from South Africa, Russell Skidmore, Budapest Blades freezing it out here. We really have got a following from all over. It's absolutely fantastic to have you all with us. So firstly, let's take a look at the fixtures on the horizon. So double game week 24, as we know, has been confirmed. So Liverpool and Everton are both going to double. Liverpool are going to be away to Everton, away to Bournemouth. Everton are going to be home to Liverpool, home to Leicester. Now, what you can see on this side, I've purposely left in game week 25 because there is an outside chance that Fulham and Spurs could potentially double in 25. According to Ben Crellin, it's only a 20% chance. And what needs to be true for that is for Spurs to get past Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final. And they must also finish in the top 8 of their Europa League group. According to Ben, only a 20% chance of that happening. But it's worth just taking into account if you are holding Fulham or Spurs players over these next few weeks. Jian, really interested in your take. We'll talk about chips next, but firstly, just the kind of fixtures and teams you're looking to target over these next 2 to 3 game weeks before chip season starts to come into the fray.
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty adamant that getting a triple Liverpool and your optimal triple Liverpool from game week 23 is what will serve people best, because not only do we have the double in 24, so you'll catch some of the value before people make those moves in, but you'll also have the Ipswich at home fixture in 23, and then on the other side you'll also have the Wolves at home fixture in 25. So everything for me at the moment is just gearing towards getting my favoured Liverpool triple up. Now, which triple up that is, that's where it becomes a lot harder. Personally, I think obviously Salah's a lock. I also think Trent's a lock as well. I think across those 4 games, there's probably at least one clean sheet and there's probably an attack and return. He happens to get them in the same game. He almost pays off the investment. And then really for me, the last slot is between Van Dijk and Gakpo. I'm not so keen on Alisson because he compromises your squad structure. I prefer the cheaper goalkeepers, and the ceiling's not too high with how good the rest of the Liverpool assets are. And in terms of Konate, I'm just worried about one benching because their schedule's very intense around that period. So for me, I'm looking at Trent and then Van Dijk or Gakpo, whichever you prefer.
And that is your...
And you're going to bring that, you're going to do that in 23. That's your plan.
Yeah, because I want it for Ipswich at home. I think there's just too much value to miss out on.
I completely agree. That little period of games, if you can nail the right player or two, home to Ipswich, home to Wolves, sandwiching a double game week is pretty insane, right? Rich, what's your thought? I think save this week is probably on the cards for a lot of people.
I think another save this week would be great, which would give me 3 going into 23 or 4 going into 24. I might be tempted to go the same way and put the third Liverpool in next week, because obviously the Ipswich and Wolves game around the double are arguably better fixtures, so you want to capitalise on those. I do think it's team specific. I mean, I think transfers are extremely precious at this moment, especially if you are like me, hoping for a bit of a break in the EFL Cup results, and therefore the opportunity to save the free hit through game week 29 would be nice to at least chase after, rather than just writing off the fact that you've got a free hit in 29. I think if Liverpool turn their game around against Tottenham, it's far more likely that we can get through 29 having stacked up with 3 Liverpool players for 24 and 25. So for that reason, I'm looking at the goalkeeper. So I'm looking at Raya down to Alisson as an easy move, because I've got no money in the bank, and I can effectively save a transfer by not moving positions around and maybe bringing Gakpo in for Jimenez or João Pedro. So I do like the goalkeeper move as a downgrade. Plus, it also gives me that extra benchable position in game week 29 when Fabianski can come in and play the blank. So I'm just thinking a little bit longer term with it, as well as getting the third Liverpool for the double. I'm thinking about the spots in the 29 for riding out the blank possibly. So, but other than that, I agree with Gakpo. I think that's a really good shout. And also Virgil has a history of doing really well in double game weeks. Come up with a headed goal or something, and there's his 15 points for the double. So yeah, agree with Gakpo. I think Trent, Gakpo, Salah is the best 3.
So it's all Liverpool then at the moment in terms of transfer usage. It feels like are there any kind of opportunities over the next week or two, or is it just save, crash into Liverpool the best way you can? Is there any other avenues?
I would do. I want to save. I mean, I've got Mikalenko who's hanging around from my game week 6 wildcard. I've still got him, because I will roll him out for the double in case they bang in a couple of 0-0.
I've got Leicester. They're home to Leicester. You never know.
Exactly. I just not. I see there's a slide later on that there's a certain person making a reappearance in our transfer recommendations. I don't think he'll be coming into my team after the Chris Wood experience that I've had. So no, I'm not sure Everton warrant investment. Perhaps if you're moving money around and you're looking to enable something, then going down to an Everton player to enable a Gakpo or something like that, I think it's justifiable, because you're getting a double game week out of it. So that's the only way I could see him getting an additional Everton.
Yeah, even if they had a half decent sort of home game in 25, you could potentially justify it that way. But the away to Palace is not an easy game, is it? So you'd literally just be buying them just for that home to Leicester game, really, and just the fact that it's a double game week. Even though I'm glad I've got an Everton player, because that home to Leicester game is a nice game, and over the period of 2 games, you sometimes get the odd surprise result, odd surprise goal, right? So even if Liverpool did beat Everton 4-1, you may get some random goal off someone, or something like, or a penalty save, or a scrape a 0-0 against Leicester. So I do think an Everton player, if you've got one already, or as you say, to save money to get a route to one, isn't the worst idea, but I wouldn't go tearing your team up, right? There's so many opportunities.
You've got Pickford, haven't you, already?
I have. I got him because I had the Flecken and Fabianski double injury. Remember back in game week 18? I know Flecken came back and played and has actually got a bloody clean sheet since. But I haven't had much off Pickford. But Everton, Everton, I think, are only, especially now that Moyes is back, I can see them going a half decent run. Odd clean sheet. And there's no real alternative. I know there's Alisson, and I get the Alisson thing. I'll talk about it a little bit more on my thoughts on Liverpool when we get to it. But I'm not an Alisson fan personally. There's so limited upside there. I mean, what I agree. Hoping for 6 points. But there's not much else to kind of chat about in terms
I would
of
say
targeting
maybe
transfers?
Gordon, like potentially for those who don't have him. The run now is pretty good. Like
Newcastle's
Bournemouth
run
at
is
home,
insane. Isn't it?
Southampton, yeah, and then even like bringing in Brian Mbeumo. I was actually looking at it for my own team. You could probably just leave him for the whole season, and the guy's he's an absolute machine. He's so good. So I think like if you want to set and forget, instead of going for maybe someone like Bruno, you keep a bit of cash. I think Brian Mbeumo is still a great transfer.
Yeah, so I know Rich has earmarked a couple of Forest players as well. We'll look at them in a bit, but first look at chip strategy. Yes, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? It's obviously the assistant manager chip has kind of just chucked spanners in everywhere. And there's so much stuff going around, so much speculation about, how we could use them, when's best to kind of use them. So what we thought we would just do in this pod is just have a look at the initial, just kind of lay out when the blanks and doubles are going to be, and have a look for each chip when there's the potential to play them. Don't feel personally there's much value in going into different routes or maps yet, because there's so much to play for in terms of Carabao, semis, FA Cups and stuff. We're still, I think, 2 calendar months away, nearly 2 calendar months away from game week 29 from actually playing the chips. So much can happen in that time, right? Bukayo Saka may even be back in that time, for goodness sake, by the time we get to 29 and 30. But just to kind of layer out, according to Ben Crellin, this is how the blank double game week schedule will look. Double game week 24, which we know Liverpool and Everton. There's a small potential for a double game week 25, which may involve Fulham and Spurs. There's going to be a blank game week 29, which will be the Carabao final. There's going to be a double game week 33, a blank game week 34, which will be the semi-finals of the FA Cup, and a double game week 36. So a lot more prescriptive than previous years, obviously because of the changes, the FA Cup replays and bits and pieces. But it's much more defined. I think over the last 2 or 3 seasons. I remember there being one season, I think it was 2 years ago, where we had like 13 double game weeks in the last 15 weeks or something crazy like that. When all these things happen. But yeah, so just got on screen a few of the contenders. It looks like for game week 24, if you still got a triple captain, that could be a good chance to use it, or you could use the assistant manager chip personally. Jian, what's your kind of early thoughts on game week 24 first? Let's just have a look at that one first.
Yeah, sure. So I would say it's not the most attractive opportunity for the triple captain nor the assistant manager chip. I think when you're using the triple captain, maybe you want to go with someone who's a little bit of a differential, and maybe you want slightly better fixtures. I don't think Bournemouth away, Everton away is great.
I agree with that.
But with the fact that we have so few double game weeks this year, and we're going to need the bench boost for one and the assistant manager's chip for the other, and both are probably more powerful chips. I think just using it now and trusting Salah and getting it out of the way is probably the best practice. You could try and get a little bit funky with it and maybe use a triple captain in a single game week, but I think when Salah's playing like this and you've got 2 fixtures, you just take it and move it there. The reason I don't want to use the assistant manager chip now is I'm quite set on using it whereby I can access that 5-team rule to achieve the bonus of 10 plus points for a win. And I really don't back Everton in this double game week. I won't be surprised if Leicester score against them as well. And I don't back them to beat Liverpool or even get a point. So for that reason, I wouldn't want to play it on slot. I prefer having the third player. And I think I'll delay the assistant manager to the back end of the season.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jian. Rich, what are your early thoughts on 24?
Yeah, I agree. There's no guarantee, although it's possible that Liverpool will get to have another double game week if they get to this cup semi-finals, etc. But there's no guarantee of it. There's no guarantee that anyone has a double game week at the moment beyond game week 24. So I think you just take it. You take the opportunity to captain the best player in the game. Okay, the fixtures are not that good, but he's shown he can score home and away in any fixture. And I think it makes sense to consider the assistant manager if you've spent your triple captain already, if you've done it earlier in the season, you haven't got that chip to use, and you've got the ability to gain over that 24 period. I think you were saying before we came on air, Fergie, that if that Tottenham Fulham game drops into 25, and I think we won't know that for sure before the 24 deadline, but if that were to drop in there, you've then obviously got the jink option within the ASM to come off slot and go on to Postecoglou or Marco Silva for that extra fixture, and therefore you could get a double if you know what I mean on the ASM, and there that makes it attractive because you won't get another opportunity like that this season. So there's that upside for using it in 24 to 26. But I don't think we'll know. You'll have to take a gamble on the Spurs fixture being rearranged. So that's my view. I think take the safe option, get the triple captain used, and also, there are no real experts on the assistant manager chip out there.
Of course,
there's lots of content on it, but bagging those table bonuses. I've seen some sort of fixture, sort of historical fixture performance statistics for managers or for teams, and you're going to have to get very lucky if you're going to get one table bonus, let alone two, during the 3-week period. So it's hard to pinpoint those moving forward. Doesn't mean you can't go for them, but you can't bank on it. You're also risking some 0 pointers if you are going for it as well. It's far better to go for the steady results of a high ranking team, particularly if your rank is high, which is why I was quite surprised at you, Jian. You're already up there, and so the safer play for you.
This is Jian, Rich, you're talking to.
I know it might be to go for a slot or go for an Arteta or something like that. But you want to win the whole thing, don't you?
Yeah. I'm not playing a slot. There's no way. You couldn't pay me to.
I'm a bit. I do find the Salah triple a bit underwhelming on 24 to Jan's point, and as much as it is a weaker chip, away to Bournemouth, away to Everton, maybe gets a goal in both, which I suppose then, if you think of that with bonus, it may be worth sort of 12 or 14
that's
points.
60 points.
Yeah.
60 points.
12, well, I don't know, would it be roughly 16, 17 points? It's all right. I don't know.
I think one thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go on.
I was just going to say one thing is the fact that everyone's going. If someone's going to triple captain that week, it's all going to be on Salah, and I think that takes a little bit away from the enjoyment and how attractive it is, because it's very difficult to gain. Then, right? You almost know that you're only gaining whatever the EO difference is between that and 300%.
Quite a few have used it as well, haven't they? Already, a few used it in Gameweek 9, I think, didn't they, on Haaland and Leicester, two. Was it? And 2 as well. Yeah. Oh well, they've already gained. They got 17 points. I do remember saying actually after Gameweek 2 though, 17 points is good. Obviously, if you triple captain a player in a single game week and they hat trick, I mean, you can't ask for anything more, right? But I still want a bit more than 17 points. I think I'm just spoilt by my Alexis Sanchez 25 pointer in 2016, but I would just much rather go for a double home game or at least one really attractive home game where they got the chance of like a double or triple return and stuff. But I'm not sure. I probably will play it in 24 just because obviously we've got the chips to use in the others, but I'll wait and see. I think I'm not 100% set, and I don't think I'll be using the assistant manager chip in 24. I just feel like we're going to learn an awful lot early doors about those chips, and I also want to go into the end of the season for the first time probably with a full house of chips to play not far off 30 to 38, just consecutive. You should, right? I mean, if you set your team up reasonably well, and we'll talk about wildcarding now, from 31 to 38, what have you got? 5 of those game weeks or 6 of those game weeks? You're using chip after chip after chip after chip after chip. Mega exciting, fly up the ranks and past all the casuals. So, but yeah, we'll see. Just moving on briefly then. Free hit in 29 looks to be, I wouldn't say sort of set in stone, but some big teams are going to miss out in 29, aren't they? I know there was the infamous 29 last year where I don't think any big team played, or not. I think Spurs maybe played, but I think Rich scored 12 points. I scored 13. It was awful, but it is different this year, and obviously you can potentially dead end into 28, free hit 29, wildcard 30, set yourself up. Rich, what's your early thoughts around that sort of period?
Yeah, I think if things go the way we think they'll go with I think we said last week it was a 62% chance of Liverpool still making the final.
It is. They're still the favourites to go through, yeah.
Yeah, so if Liverpool are blanking and Newcastle and Fulham are blanking, I think that gives me something like 8 or 9 blankers. And coming into 25, that's too many players really to offload. Even if I've got 4 or 5 transfers, that's too many players to offload by 29 realistically. And then that's why I kind of like the Alisson option, because it just gives you that extra spot, that benchable slot for for 29 that will make it that little bit easier to sneak through and hold the free hit, because if you hold the free hit in 29 you can use it in 34, which is the other big blank. It could be the bigger blank. Getting through both blanks without using a free hit, I think you've got to be very lucky and very stealthy and very stingy with transfers, even stingier than me. So it's going to be a challenge to do that. Some people might manage it, but I think it would be people who've probably a short on a chip or two who would try and do that. I think you've got to use the free hit in one or the other.
Yep. Jian, are you definitely wildcarded in 30, or are you remaining flexible?
So I'm remaining flexible with the wildcard 30. The one thing I'm fairly set on is I don't really want to use the free hit in 29. I think it's better paired with the other chips and using it in 34, and obviously the blank in 29 is smaller. I think we've got quite a bit of time beforehand just to offload our triple Newcastle, or at least some of the triple Newcastle, and some of the Liverpool as well, on the assumption they get through, right? I don't think we should just write Spurs off. They've got a 1-0 lead, and it's Spurs, right? You never know with them.
You never know.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they necessarily went through. 38% still high anyway. So yeah, I don't want to use it in 29, and then I think I will wildcard around like 30, 32. Yeah, just to set up the bench boost if I'm to use it in 33, and then the assistant manager to the back end. The only thing is the bench boost in 33 doesn't look so attractive because the teams that are doubling have slightly awkward fixtures and they all kind of play against each other. It's not particularly big double game week. So that's the only reason why I'm potentially considering like a bench boost 36. And if that was the case, it'd be wildcard 30, AM 31 to 33, and then free at 34.
So you'd only actually use one sort of normal transfer then going into 35.
That's right. Yeah, so you could that sort of gap between 30 and 36 isn't ideal for setting up for a bench boost, is it? But it especially if your transfers are elsewhere in terms of the ASM chip and all that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting one. It's a really interesting
hopefully that is true. Actually, that is true.
Yeah, this is why we don't want to delve down too many rabbit holes, is because we still have no idea. We're still 2 or 3 months away from all this sort of playing out, and so and so many things change. But it's good to have these things. I think I mentioned it last week. Just have these things kind of locked in the back of your mind. So when you're playing the game and making transfers, it's like, I locked last week back when Ben mentioned about Fulham potentially doubling 25, for example. I was having an hour around keeping Robinson or not, but now I keep it in regardless. It's just something that's not even like a consideration until it's confirmed either way. So there's still lots of routes, right? And that 30 through to 38 is going to be so interesting, because so much is going to change, like in terms of the league table. I looked at the league. Well, I looked at the bottom half of the league for a while. Like the top half of the league always sort of flicks up everywhere. I didn't realize Spurs are 13th and United are 15th. Wow. Even though obviously they play this evening, but Palace is still quite low and stuff. So there's lots of very good teams down the bottom. Which, depending on how their form goes the next few games, could be really good assistant manager candidates going into game week 31 to 33. You could go for Postecoglou or an Amorim or another sort of and realistically come out with if you've got an informed team against an off-form team in 7th or 8th or sliding down the table, there's huge opportunity there. But we're not going to know this until the time, are we? So. Yeah, anything else at all, gents, to add on chips?
I just think the grading of the chips is important in your own mind. Triple captain still probably feels like the weakest chip of all, because it's really just one player and an extra set of points based on one player. I'd probably put the bench boost behind that, and then the free hit behind that, and then really it's between probably the ASM's possibly even more valuable than a wild card now in terms of its points potential. And you'd say there's 40 to 60 points there if you play it well and it goes your way, but equally there's 5 to 10 points if you completely mess it up, because you're really backing a team. That team could lose 3 consecutive matches and just get no points and score no goals in that period, whereas it could smash 3 teams higher up the table and just make all the difference between anyone's season being being a great one or a poor one. So I think it's really important to that column there where you've got those 3 windows. One of those 3 windows is probably likely to be the best time to play it in conjunction with all the other chips and blanks and doubles around. So that's kind of almost like set itself there. You can obviously play it between 27 and 29 if you want to, but you've got a blank game week in there. You've got no doubles, because all of those windows will have a double game week for you to play in as part of the chip. So I think I've seen a comment in the thing, what have we still got to learn about the chip? Well, maybe you haven't got a lot to learn about the chip, but you've got a lot to learn about the teams in the rest of the season and their motivation and their performance and how they're looking towards the end of the season. If teams are on the beach and they're higher up the table than a team that's fighting relegation, and that team on the beach is rotating players or resting players, and they're there for the taking from a team 5 places below them that are fighting relegation. So but we don't know who those teams are at the moment. So therefore, your bet on that team is going to change now versus then. So there's an answer.
Really good point, Rich, indeed. So shout out to Ashwaya. Good evening, guys, from India. And Colin Harrison has just liked and subscribed. If you haven't liked and subscribed and you are watching, please make sure you do. And what we'll do is, we'll every week we'll tiptoe through the chip strategy. We don't want to start laying out these predefined routes because that's just not the way we play, and we don't think it would be fair to our watchers and listeners just to put content out just because we feel that people want the content. Rich and I will and Jian and whoever else joins us will kind of talk in real time about our thinking and not just put stuff out just for stuff's sake. So hopefully everyone appreciates that. But every week we'll learn a bit more, and we'll tiptoe through. So it's really, really going to be an interesting period. We did briefly talk about double game week 24 target, and we talked about the sort of optimal 3 that we're looking at. And if we're going to go to Everton players, Jian, Salah, Trent, and Gakpo, I think were your 3.
I'd go Van Dijk over Gakpo. It'd be close, but I'd go Van Dijk
over Gakpo. Interesting. Okay. And no Everton, I think you said, unless you hold on already.
Yeah, I really just don't like the Everton assets for that double because you have to sell them as well after.
We're going to get slammed for putting Calvert-Lewin on there.
Do you know what, mate? Calvert-Lewin, he's going to be my differential for 24. He had 0.7 XG last night, and Moy's comments were. I'm paraphrasing as I always do with manager comments, but if someone's going to save our season, it's going to be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So I really think that he had a lot of shots last night. He didn't hit the target, but I think Calvert-Lewin is going to do all right over these next few games. I'm saying that out loud. I'm going to get absolute pelters. But I said the same, Rich, in game week 30 last year. I said, watch out for Nicholas Jackson end of the season. And they laughed in my face. And Nicholas Jackson caned it. It's all about timing in this game.
We put together virtually identical wildcards in game week 6, mate. There were 2 6 million forwards to choose from: Chris Wood and Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
They were.
You can tell why you're still ahead of me, can't you?
Well, I think Calvert-Lewin is going to get a couple of goals in the next 4. He's not my pick this week. They got this week. Spurs, I can't think. Is it Spurs this week? I can't remember. He's not my pick this week, but I wouldn't be against holding him. So who's your top 3, Rich? At the moment as it stands, going into game week 24 for Liverpool. Alisson's your 3rd, is it?
Salah, Trent, Gakpo would be my top. I may still get Gakpo. I think it's tempting to have the attacking upside. I think Liverpool haven't really been, despite them and Arsenal, despite their XGC stats making them the best defences. I think Liverpool have only kept 1 clean sheet in 6, and Arsenal only 2 in 6. So they're not blowing us away with clean sheets. So I do get the Van Dijk pick, and it's possibly going to save a transfer to do Van Dijk or the goalkeeper. But Gakpo, I think, is the more exciting pick for the double. I just would like to make that transfer perhaps nearer game week 24 because of all the games that Liverpool have got in between, and in fact they've got 2 games to play that are between the 2 Premier League games, haven't they? In game week 24, they've got an FA Cup fixture and they've got their final European fixture, which might be a dead rubber, but they've still got to play it, and they've still got to put players out. So they've actually got 4 games to play in that double game week period. Right. So making your choices as late as possible on Liverpool assets is probably a good play.
I'm getting a lot of stick in the chat for backing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as you'd expect. FPL Freddy says, Fergie needs to see a doctor. And Brandon, Fergie, how many shots did you have before you came on the show? Guy Parker, XG doesn't matter when it comes to DCL. He can't finish for toffee. Lots of Luke the Lucky, he could have 4 XG, still wouldn't touch him. And
triple captain DCL.
Triple captain Calvert-Lewin. And Lennox says, Undaye will always love you. Very good, Lennox. I like that one. So yeah, I think my 3, I've already got Salah and Trent. I'm excited about Gakpo. I don't want to spoil later, but Gakpo is looking good over this period, I think.
Could you put Alexis in there in the corner? What's your rationale for putting him in?
Yeah, McAllister. So, I think he's been on really good form is all. I think he's playing very well. He was taking. I missed the last game, but he was taking quite a lot of corners as well on both sides. On both sides, I think. And I just like I just think he's a very, very differential pick. And I think there's players like him and Szoboszlai. For those who watched Szoboszlai play against Spurs in the 6-3, I mean, Szoboszlai, I think he scored. Did he score 2 or he got 2 returns? Could have scored 4.
He was brilliant.
He was superb. So I'm just not ruling out going for someone along those lines. I just keep it again in sort of the back of my mind. If he stays on the corners, and plays all the games, he's just in the back of my mind. And there's obviously other players as well, Pickford and Dye, who should play 90. Jota's another one. I think I'd only ever go for Jota if sort of Gakpo got injured or Diaz got injured or something. I think that's what we want, right? In the context of FPL, not in the context of their personal lives.
Jota should start against Brentford, shouldn't he, this weekend? I would think, after coming on and literally scoring. I mean, what a substitution by Slot to bring
Tsimikas assisted.
Tsimikas and Jota. They first kick of the game for both of them, and it resulted in a goal and assist. Absolutely incredible stuff. Yeah, so I think both of them will probably be in for the weekend.
Looking to this week now then, so we kind of looked into the future. We kind of set out our stalls roughly on what we're thinking for the coming weeks. But this week, we've had a question, Rich, in the chat from Steed Scotia. Hi, lads. A question for Rich. What will it take for Rich to get excited about Wood? He is delivering, and he is right smack bang in the middle of the page. Chris Wood. Who would have thought we'd be talking about him?
Yeah. Rich, have you not owned him for the whole season?
Never owned him.
Neither have I. Neither have I. So I know every week you check.
I just can't. I said 2 or 3 episodes ago, I said I just can't get excited about Chris Wood now. But I got Jimenez and Gordon in, so it's still gone well. But Wood has been clipping my wings in terms of the gains I could have made. As the player that I don't own who keeps on scoring, just because he's more consistent than Mbomo, and he just keeps on scoring. He gets one chance a game, but he puts it in the back of the net. And everybody's got better stats than him in terms of expected, but he just is defying those stats and continues to perform. It's absolutely extraordinary.
I'll give you a
still
stat.
Great value. So he deserves to be there for this week, and he's got Southampton at home. So
I'll give you one stat that you'll be interested in. In the last 5 games, Jackson's had more XG than Wood has in the whole season. And in that time, Jackson scored 0 and Wood scored 13. So
that is absolutely insane. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is actually ridiculous. Like a 13-goal swing over when Jackson's got more XG is ridiculous.
That is crazy. I can't believe people benched him this week. I get it's Liverpool, but this is Chris Wood we're talking about here. And people were benching him this week. I find that mental. Like if you've got Chris Wood, you just play him because he's just scores on average a goal. A goal or gets a return every game, don't you? So
you got to get in him, and here's one that we did get right. If you haven't got Anthony Gordon yet, get him. He's still got 3 fantastic games.
Absolutely,
Newcastle look the best team in the league on form at the moment. and he will just continue to do a Chris Wood for the next 3 weeks. He'll just continue to get returns, in my view. And even though it might only be a temporary thing and you move him on once Newcastle are in the final, etc., he's worth getting for a short period. I think, these 3 games that Newcastle have got, 2 of them at home, I still think it's not too late to get on him. And if you can't go Visa because your midfield is full of Brunos and Gordons and so on and so forth, then Visa is a great option, who I do regret selling a few weeks back, and he just continues to bang as well. Very similar to Chris Wood. However, his stats are, off the charts in terms of what he's expected to score. So he is actually, in terms of expected goals per 90, I think top of all strikers. So
he is.
I might buy him next week.
Yeah.
I looked at his stats earlier, and he was top by it was only over the last 2 because it defaulted the last 2 game weeks. He was head and shoulders with every other player. He had something like 13 shots, 9 in the box over the last 2 games. He's just absolutely flying. I really think this is a good option. And you've also got Elanga and Aina, obviously.
Elanga, I think the last 6, his points for the last 6. I mean, it's just been huge. He's returned in every game. I think his first return was off the bench, but then he's started the last 5 and returned in every game with a couple of double-figure returns in there as well. So just as a form pick, if you haven't yet got one of these 5 to 5.5-ish price enablers, most of us have got one in the team, and I'm not saying swap Rodgers for him or swap Ahmad for him or whatever, but if you want an enabler, and you may well need an enabler to get to Gakpo, etc., then Elanga looks a really good bet for this week, to allow you to move money around the team. I think 5.2 million. I almost thought he'd be your punt for this week, Fergie, but he isn't. But he's very low owned, and Forest do look like a team to invest in. Hence the placeholder at the back there. I think that's Aina at the back.
I love his grin.
Expensive now.
Yeah.
He's getting expensive now. He's 5.3 million.
Wow.
But he's still the top scoring defender in the game, I think. If you want to go cheaper, then Milenkovic looks really good at 4.8. Or if you want to go bargain basement, even Neco Williams looks great as well. So a Forest defender of sorts, according to budget, also looks really good for this game, and a great entry point this week against Southampton. Hence the picks are dominated by Forest assets, mate.
Absolutely. Aina's smile in that. He's loving life there, and he's like, I am the top scoring FPL defender with that face. Yeah, no, really, really good picks. But as we say, it's tough because you've obviously got. So, are either of you guys plan on buying Wood this week?
Probably not. So it's unlikely. I looked at a route and I could potentially do it, but it would just make my life harder in 23. So I think I probably don't do it. And I'm hoping that Southampton put a good showing on at Old Trafford, and then it's easier just not to buy him. And you know what? Even if Wood scores like 6, 7, 8 points, I'm hoping that Jackson can match that. Wolves at home's a pretty good fixture.
Good fixture.
So I'm kind of just hoping he could just chill out for 1 week, take a bit of a break.
I mean, this practice of targeting the team that's playing Southampton at the moment and buying an asset for the team, that would have paid off handsomely for
especially with the Brentford
5
game.
or 6 weeks. The Brentford game tonight, we've got the United game. Who knows? But it's just continuing to be a really good ploy. Just get someone in who's playing Southampton. You've got a chance of a 5-0. So. Absolutely, that's the sofa game for me, the Wood game. But I just value the transfer. I don't need to make a transfer this week, so I'll hold on to it and just have the power for navigating 29 and the double because I value it higher.
Question from Mohit. He says, no love for Foden after an assist and 3 goals in 3 games. Well, there's love from Jian. He's in his team.
Talk about Foden, Jian. You holding him?
Yeah, so I think you have to hold him for Ipswich away, right? There's no way we can sell him after an assist and a goal and a brace. But after that, he's just a perfect cash cow to get the money into the rest of the team. Yeah. Whether you want to upgrade your 7th forward or 7th attacker, whether you want to get Trent, whether you want to get Gakpo, whether you want to get Virgil, he does all of that because he's so expensive. So I think after that, you kind of take the point and you run with it. You're happy with what you've got, but he's just very difficult to justify because he blocks so much.
Yeah, and you've got the perfect flip between Man City fixtures go tough, don't they? And Liverpool's just completely ease up. You've got that perfect flip point there, haven't you? So yeah, it makes sense.
I think 23 is okay for Foden. Like Chelsea at home, I can see him scoring past us. I can see them beating, or there's just being a lot of goals in that game. But yeah, after that, like Newcastle, Arsenal, it gets tough.
For sure. Good stuff. Thanks for that, gents. Predicted points for the next few game weeks obviously includes the double for 24. Salah way out in front, 41.7. Who would have thought at the start of the season, guys, that Salah would just be, show this level of form? It's insane. Palmer just behind on 31. Isak on 27. Haaland still there on 27. Trent Alexander-Arnold 26. And then we've got Luis Diaz and Gakpo and Robertson all hovering around 25, 24 and 23. There's lots of options there. I'm not sure whether, it's going to be interesting to see whether Trent and Robertson share some minutes, which is probably why we haven't mentioned Robertson in terms of the double. I suppose where in terms of Trent, I expect Bradley to get some minutes as well, though, because we've probably all got Trent. We're not going to get rid of him ahead of a double. I do think Bradley will get minutes, which is probably why Virgil is the safest in terms of minutes over this period. I'm potentially Alisson. De Bruyne is in there. He's been starting. Wood, Virgil, and Alisson. Foden, Cunha back on the menu potentially. Ismaila Sarr got his assist last night finally after all the promise.
To those who held.
I sold him for Gordon, mate. And then Havertz and Puemo. Solanke, Bruno, and Visser, but yeah, dominate that top sort of 8 spots there, dominated by Liverpool, Palmer, Isak, and Haaland. I don't think any of us are going to go back to Haaland. As long as you've got Palmer, Isak, and take your 3 out of the Liverpool lot, it looks like you're pretty well set for the next few weeks. Good stuff there. We've had a super chat which we don't promote, but we better answer. Bramot has asked: is Pickford versus triple Liverpool sensible in Gameweek 24 or keep Raya? Rich, can you just answer quickly?
Well, it's really it's to me, if you have Pickford, then obviously you keep him. But if you bring him in, if you factor in say you're selling Raya or you're selling a keeper that's more than him, you're perhaps getting money to enable another transfer. You have the Leicester game at home, which is a really nice fixture for Pickford, and then you've got potential for save points in the Liverpool game, assuming that there isn't a clean sheet there. But Liverpool did win that fixture last year 1-0, so it's not beyond Everton to win the derby against Liverpool. So I think he's a reasonable pick amongst not a great bunch of picks for Everton. We know they're not a great side. We know they can't score many goals, but he's a good stopper, and he has, if you compare him to other keepers, he's got good stats. So I think he's a reasonable pick. But keeping Raya is also fine if you want to save your transfers.
Yeah, he's no Calvert-Lewin though, is he? He's the man. He's the man to pick in the coming weeks. Quick look at the Hub AI Game Week 22 wildcard team. So this is what Hub AI would pick. Pickford and Valdemarson. So it's going for Pickford.
Hub AI's picked Pickford.
Hub AI has picked Pickford. It's also gone for Gabriel, Trent, Nico Williams. So it likes the Forest defence as well. Palmer, Salah, Semenyo, and Ismaila Sarr. So it's very hot on Sarr as well. Diblin as the 5th mid. I'm not too keen on having a 4.5 mid myself. I still think there's enough funds around in there.
It's a very cheap midfield.
Palmer, it's expensive defense, Salah and Palmer, and then Isak, Wood, and Gakpo is his 3rd in the wild card, which is interesting. I gotta say, there's not much you can pick out of that. It has got I'll pronounce it wrong, Hudson for Bournemouth and Harwood Bellis, just sort of making up the numbers there.
I'm surprised if it's just having Isak from Newcastle. That's one reaction. I think there'd be at least one more Newcastle pick in there. Maybe Murphy over Semenyo if money was tight, or Gordon in there, or Lewis Hall. I would expect you to see one of those in there, but maybe just over the double and over the 5-week period, because Newcastle's fixture is tougher. That might be the reason for it, and it does favour, doesn't it? Strongly favours the first 11.
Absolutely,
it goes with the weak bench a lot, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. If you go on to Fantasy Football Hub on your team and set your bench boost, say for example, for a certain week, or set your chips for certain weeks, it will then recommend transfers based on that strategy as well. So at the moment, because the Hub AI won't have a sort of set chip strategy yet, it won't. But if you put in your bench boost, for example, for 25, it will start to bring in players ahead of that. So if you are a Hub member, have a look at that feature. The assistant manager chip is coming very, very soon as well. But yeah, like the like the look overall of that team. Obviously, you can argue the merits of individual players, but it looks strong. Captain for this week, predicted points. Fancy Football Hub, Palmer 8.2 points, comes out top this week. Salah second 7.9, Haaland 7.4, Isak 7.1, Wood 6.2, and we put the poll up really late on Fancy Football Hub this week, obviously because the game week hasn't finished. There's only been about 30 odd votes because we only put it up for like half an hour. Isak 7 votes, Salah 7 votes, Palmer 7 votes, Wood 4 votes. Just goes to show, normally even with that sort of subset of data, you normally get some kind of runaway leader, but it is incredibly tight. Jian, what's your thoughts on captain for this week?
So firstly, I think it's really tough. I think it's really tough. I expect more of the field to go with Palmer for the fact that he's a midfielder, he's Palmer, and he's at home. I think the fact he's at home is a big deal. As for why most of the field will go there. Also, when the models are suggesting him, that definitely helps. For me, I was on Salah until I watched Wolves last night. I really thought after the Forest game they would look to be a bit more compact, but they weren't. And not doing that in Newcastle is quite bold, and they were punished for it. So if they're going to go to Chelsea and do the same, I'll probably swing back to Palmer. But I will try to justify Salah to myself. The only thing is Brentford are a better side than Wolves. So even with their aggressive game model, I'm still going to have some respect for that. So I'm probably slightly leaning towards Palmer now after what I saw from Wolves. But it's close. I even think like Isak's got a really good game specifically for him. The number 9s usually do very well against Bournemouth. And then it's hard to argue that there's anything wrong with Chris Wood at home to Southampton, right?
I kind of like the Monday night thing with Palmer as well, sort of waiting to the end of the game week for double bubble. Rich, what's your thoughts on captaincy?
I think it's arguably harder this week than it was last week. I mean, obviously having just had the Isak returns, that feels really good. So applies, you get some recency bias for that going into the Bournemouth game. Yes, Bournemouth are a better side than Wolves, but the form of Newcastle still looks pretty irresistible. So I think Isak could do very well again if you want to keep it on Isak. Salah is an away game, could go either way. Brentford are very good at home. Still, they came back against City. They're very likely to score and perform extremely well at home. So I'm probably Isak or Palmer at the moment ahead of Salah. I've not captained Palmer hardly at all this season. I mean, I've owned him for a while, but I've not really ever got anything out of him because he feels like a dead pick if you don't captain him. So I was quite interested to see how bullish Jian was on Palmer. He's a bit of a Chelsea expert, so that's interesting, mate. Wolves aren't good, are they? So the matchup is good for Palmer, isn't it?
Yeah, I quite like it. And I'd say he probably is right now number 1. But I echo your thoughts. I think Isak could do really well this week. One thing I don't like about Isak is the fact he's a forward. So you get one less goal for the goal, and then you also don't get that clean sheet point. And I just like to maximize my upside, and I think that's why Palmer will always be starting ahead of Isak, and then he plays a better opposition as well.
Yeah, and it's I mean, he seems to just have to turn up to get bonus points, Palmer, as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Like him and Semenyo, like he was actually below Semenyo when the game was 2-1, and he ends up finishing like 10 points above him on the bonus system. If he scores, it's almost like an automatic 10, 11 pointer, which is very beneficial.
I like that. I think I'll be on Palmer. I went for Isak this week, but I do take the opposition probably a lot more into account than maybe I should. Which is why I went Isak against Wolves as opposed to Palmer this week. So I do think Bournemouth are a good team. I think Newcastle will probably beat Bournemouth, but you wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 1-1 or a 2-1, whereas Chelsea and Wolves feels a bit more 2-0, 3-0.
You never know with us at the moment, though. Like we've had so many opportunities. We should have beat Palace, and we allowed them to come back, albeit they had chances. We definitely should have killed Bournemouth in the first half. Should have buried Fulham, and all of them we all end up like not winning and losing as well.
Wolves are conceding as well, aren't they? I just can't look back. I think the only alternative I'm looking at. So obviously, I'm going to watch United Southampton this evening, and if United gives Southampton an absolute pasting, Chris Wood could potentially be the captain for for the first time. He's just like Forest just look absolutely fantastic. He looks fantastic. He's on penalties. Would you bet against a 3-0 Forest Southampton with a Wood sort of double return. That's kind of what.
I mean, normally he normally gets 1 goal and 3 bonus points, doesn't he? So he's almost sort of feels like he's got a ceiling of 9 points. I know he can score more than that, but these days FPL's become so hard now that people want a double figure return. They don't want a single figure return. They're not happy with 1 goal, are they? So yeah, it's a good one, Wood, but there are good alternatives out there. Really tough this week.
You're right with what you said. The game is so competitive at the moment. Like, to get a sizable green out, your team has to perform so well at the moment.
Guy Parfitt, Chelsea did also stick 6 past Wolves earlier this season as well. That's right,
6-2 that game.
I think that's the cherry on top for me. It'll be Palmer, I think, and and the Monday nighter as well. So yeah, interesting stuff. Thanks for that, gents. Fergie's a punt for game week 22. I did potentially rush this a little bit. I think if I was looking for a 1 week punt, it would definitely be a Forest player, probably a Forest defender. I think if I was going for a 1 week punt, but I'm trying to look forward. I'm trying to look at. I think because the majority of managers will either be bringing in Wood or Gordon if you haven't got them this season, or saving. I didn't really see much value in kind of going for any of those. So I was trying to look ahead a little bit. And I probably wouldn't recommend this one for this week. Maybe if you've got loads of fixtures and you're looking for a forward. But I wouldn't mind going early on Cody Gakpo. I'm really hot on him for this run. I just think he's 8.7% owned. And I'm guessing, I haven't checked his sort of EO in the top sort of, couple of 100,000, but I'm guessing it's incredibly low, probably like 1-2% or even sort of lower than that. You don't see him in any teams, do you? Sort of, in the community, and I just feel that he's been scoring really consistently. Between sort of game week 10 and 12 and round about now. I think he's going under the radar. He's got a brace in him. He's got a double return in him. Liverpool are absolutely flying. In his last 4, he's got 3 goals and 1 assist. Which has probably gone under the radar because he just kind of does it all the time. Always gets overshadowed by Salah, but that double up, especially going into 23, 24 and 25, all we need now is a nice little knock for Jota and maybe a nice little sickness bug for Luis Diaz, again, in the context of FPL before anyone starts. And I really think that Gakpo could have a really good time and owners could be rewarded. So I think he's going to be my pick for these coming weeks. Insane run between 23 and 25, and I can see plenty of goals for Liverpool. So he is my differential. I didn't really want to just pick someone for this week, so I don't see the point because we're all planning ahead, right? So, but yeah, let's have a look at our teams going into the weekend. Rich, you've got a 95% team rating overall and a 95% game week rating. Very well played. Team's obviously very well set up. Okay. What's your plans ahead of the weekend?
Yeah, if everything goes well tonight and Bruno stays fit, I will roll again to give myself 3 transfers going into 23 and lots of options there. So that's my plan. I probably will play Lewis Hall over Munoz despite the predicted points being higher on the Palace man. I just fancy Hall in the home fixture. So I would otherwise set it up. Rodgers is benchable away to Arsenal, so that's fine, although he keeps scoring. He's not going anywhere either. And at the moment, according to that graphic, João Pedro is still flagged, but I'm actually thinking I benched Pedro this week, and I think he'll possibly be on the bench tonight, and Welbeck will start the game. So
I hope not,
that's just my thoughts. But hopefully, I think Pedro will be back for United. So I'll probably set up like that. Other than that, I think you've gone for Palmer, or the AI's gone for Palmer for me, and I probably will, after this discussion, go Palmer with maybe an Isak vice. So my team will be, for those listening and not able to see the YouTube, will be Raya, Gabriel, Trent, Lewis Hall, Palmer, captain, Salah, Bruno Fernandes, Anthony Gordon, Isak, Jimenez, and João Pedro. So nice setup. I quite like that. And happy to keep rolling.
Very well played, sir. Your recommended transfer for this week, unsurprisingly, because your team is in such good shape, is to save your transfer. If you were to look at an aggressive transfer, which you probably wouldn't, but if you were, João Pedro to Wood, funded by Gordon to Ismail Assar. But again, that's just looking at kind of a 1 week sort of look there. So you're not going to do that. So
I'm going to keep Gordon for a while.
You're looking good, mate. Very well played. Jian, we've got your team on screen. Do you want to run us through it and your thinking?
Yeah, sure. So I'm thinking potentially 1 transfer, but most likely to roll. If I do make one, it will be Jackson out. The thing is, I'm looking to get to 23 with 4 frees. And then from there, I'm going to restructure heavily to bring in those Liverpool assets. I've looked at like all the routes I can take. I can sell Gabriel, but if I don't want to do that, then I either have to sell one of Sanchez or Jackson. I can move Jackson into pretty much any forward I'd like to free up those funds. However, one of the moves that allows me to get this double Liverpool or triple Liverpool is Foden to Eze. But I am thinking about just going Foden to Mbeumo, not having to make the move ahead of 29, and Brighton Mbeumo is just so good anyway, which would mean that I would have to go Jackson all the way down to Johan Wissa and double up on Brentford, which I'm not opposed to, right? They score so many goals and they create so many chances, so it should be fine. So I'd probably roll and then do that next week.
So just for the podcast listeners, you've got Sanchez in goal, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Hall, Palmer, Salah, Foden, Gordon, Isak, Jackson, and João Pedro. Again, very, very nice, mate. Good team. And what a season you're having, 35k. Nice to see a different sort of team as well. You know, Foden, Jackson, Gvardiol, you know, really, really well played, mate. You're doing Stormer.
Thank you.
Unsurprisingly, again, you had a 94% team rating on Fantasy Football Hub. Recommend no transfer this week. If you were to use all your 3, a very, very aggressive Nicholas Jackson to Wood, Rodgers to Ismail Assar, and Hall to Milenkovic, just for the 1 week gains. But again, that is only if you're looking to be aggressive, which you're not. You're well planned. So, nothing needs doing there. If you do want your own personalised transfers for your team, Fantasy Football Hub, a 7-day free trial, top link in the description below. Import your team. It's very, very easy, and you can get everything, everything personalised for your FPL team there. My team setup, I've got 95% game week rating, 96% team rating. Pickford, I have got Fabianski. I'm trying to think who I'd go for there. Probably Fabianski. I'd probably play this week at home to Palace over Pickford against Spurs. I've got Gabriel, Trent, and Hall. Palmer, Salah, Gordon, and Mbeumo. Wood, nice. Isak, and João Pedro. I do have Robinson on my bench, who I would probably like to start. So I'll take a look this evening at who I could potentially bench. I don't think I'm going to bench Mbeumo. If anyone, it would be João Pedro away to Man United, maybe play. Would that be 4-4?
Would you consider benching Gabriel?
No, mate. It's these headers.
It's a man of the match.
It's these headers. He's just an animal. It's just a 15-pointer waiting to happen every game, isn't he? I just can't.
I probably should have spoken about that. I actually haven't benched at the moment.
You've got him benched, so you were loving it last night then.
No. As in, I haven't benched for like
this week.
The Villa at home.
Coming week. Okay.
I want to play because I'm in the same situation as you with Robinson, and I want to play him over Gabriel.
I think 4-4-2. I might go this week. I might play Robinson.
I went 4-4-2 this week, and it's worked out really well. I think people are almost afraid to play 4-4-2 these days, and so they might do it more often going forward. Because if the fixtures match up for your 4 main defenders, it's I
think if you've got sort of premium performing defenders, so I would say Gabriel and Trent are premium defenders, right? I would never ever bench them. Hall is performing like a premium defender, and Robinson is performing like a premium defender. I think if you're talking about potentially even someone like Munoz or someone who just is showing,
I'm not that high on Munoz anymore.
Showing glimpses but doesn't quite do it, but Robinson, what did he get? Another 2 assists the other night? Was he on 9 assists for the season?
Yeah, but the two are the dodgiest assists you've ever had.
Yeah, but he's there, right? He's
layoffs by the halfway line.
But he's there, and Hall is performing. Like I say, he's absolutely frightening. They're performing like these premium defenders, so you've got that double potential upside avenue there. So, whereas João Pedro away to United, watch now, he'd probably go and get a bloody goal and assist as tends to happen. But it's a close one. We'll see. I've also got Rodgers. I really like Rodgers' fixtures between 4-23 and for 25. I think they've got back-to-back really good home games on there. And I've got Rico Lewis just kind of sat there, who I could play away to Ipswich, but at the moment I'm just kind of leaving.
He got left out, didn't he? He got benched last night, didn't he?
Yes, he did, which means more than likely he's going to start the next few. So
the next one. Yeah.
I could do Lewis to a Forest defender. But I just give myself even more of a benching headache then, so I'm just going to leave it and roll it out and just see how it goes. So it sounds like all 3 of us, gents, are going to have a pretty boring week this week, but we've set ourselves up pretty well. We're all we're all on greenish arrows, obviously depending on what happens this evening. And we're all set for a pretty good few weeks, hopefully. My recommended transfer is Save, which I will very likely do this week. And Hall to Milenkovic is the kind of upside. Really likes the Forest defence, as you can tell. I think it's all over Forest this week, understandably, right? Because they should give Southampton. It's just got 3-0 just written all over that game, haven't it? I think so. So yeah, interesting stuff there. But that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. Those joined in the chat, those who watch it back, and those listening on the podcast versions. Your support is very, very much appreciated. Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
I'm at Rich Clarke FPL on X and Blue Sky.
And Jian, absolute superstar as usual. Really, really appreciate your insight, your thinking, and your deep FPL brain. Where can people get hold of you?
At FPL Jian Batra on YouTube and X. Thank you, Fergi.
Lovely stuff. My handle is at FFH_Fergi on X and Blue Sky. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you haven't already. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Just a thought, Rich. I was having a chat the other day with Will and a few members of the Hub team, and we did discuss a potential Green Arrow live somewhere at some point. Let us know in the chat if that would be something which would potentially appeal, sort of live in some kind of, I don't know,
studio,
social club hall, I was thinking, or pub or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I think that could potentially be really good fun, and give something back to our members. But yeah, we'll update you on more on that potentially in the coming weeks and months.
Sounds great fun.
We will be back next Thursday. Looking forward to Game Week 23. In the meantime, we hope you have a fantastic Game Week 22, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.